In today's episode, we're going to start a new series. We're going to build a full-fledged CRM application using Laravel as a full-stack framework, meaning that we're going to use Laravel to build out our functionality as well as using the Blade templating engine to build our front end. I've gone ahead and installed a new Laravel project. And if you're not sure how to do that, I'll leave a link in the description below to one of my other videos where I explain exactly how to do it. I've also gone ahead and installed an admin theme, which we're going to use for our CRM. You can basically use anything, but I've got one from Theme Forest, and this is what it looks like. It's pretty neat, it's pretty clean, and yeah, I think it just looks great. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is basically set up our user accounts and user roles. So what we need first is a role model. So let's go ahead and create our role model. PHP artisan make model, and we'll call it role. And we want a factory and a migration. So if we go to our database folder, go to our migrations, we set up our roles. Okay, and while we're at it, we can just clean up this code a little bit. Personally, I don't like to use doc blocks. I rather type in the return type for the methods. Again, that is probably personal preference. Some people would say it's a standard these days, but yeah, it's up to you. If you have a strong opinion about it, please go ahead and leave it a comment down below. I would appreciate your feedback. Okay, so what we're going to need for our role is basically just a name column for now. Okay, so next we're going to set up our many-to-many relationship table, because the relationship between our roles and our users is going to be a many-to-many relationship. So what we're going to do is we can say PHP artisan make migration, and then we're going to say create role user table, and then we specify the table name, which in this case would be role user. Okay, so if we look at our role user table, you'll see the name of the table is role user. Now I'll leave another link in the description to a video I've got where I explain exactly the many-to-many relationship. So let's go ahead and clean this up as well, and we can do the return types. Okay, and then what we're going to need for our pivot table is we'll need a foreign ID, and the column would be role ID, and we'll constrain it, and then we'll say we want to cascade on delete. We'll basically copy that, and the second column would be the user ID. Okay, now that's great. Let's go to our users table and complete our information. Let's clean this up as per usual. Void, and the return type here would also be void. And now what we're going to need is we're going to change this, because we want a first name. We would want a last name, and because this is CRM, we can probably have a timestamp with the user's date of birth. Okay, we're not going to need the email verified at, and we're also not going to need the remember token, so we can remove that as well. Okay, and now we can run our migrations. PHP artisan migrate fresh. I'm running migrate fresh because I'm using a database that's previously set up. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up our factories. So let's do a factory for the user. And, okay, so we need to change this to first name. This needs to be first name, and then we've got a last name equals a last name, and we don't have email verified, we don't have remember token, but we do have a date of birth, which would be, let's say, date of birth is this dot faker dot date. Oops. Okay, and for our roles, we'll just do a date straight in our database seeder. So let's set up a few users first. Let's do 10 users. Let's just remove this so it imports it at the top. Okay, and then we've got a role factory, and we can set up multiples by specifying the count. We want to count 2, and then we call the state method, and in the state method we can say new sequence. The sequence takes in an array, which we can specify our roles we want to create by passing an array of name, and the first one would be administrator. The second parameter would be an array as well, calling a user. We're only going to create 2 of these at the moment. We'll do some more a little bit later. And then we need to call the create method last. Let's just clean up this code a bit, make this look better. Okay, and now we can call our seeder PHP artisan db seed, and it should seed successfully. Okay, and now if we look in our database, I'm using MySQL. We can see 10 users have been created, and in our roles table, we can see the 2 roles, administrator and user, also created. Okay, so back in VS Code, let's set up our user controller by creating a PHP artisan make controller, and we call it user controller. Okay, so let's open up our user controller, and we can start off by setting up our index method because we've already got a few users in the database. So let's set up our index method so we can basically just display them on the screen. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to return a view which we don't have yet. We'll call it pages, and it'll be users dot index, and we're going to pass in some data which would be users, and we're going to say user, we'll just return all for now. Okay, so let's create our view under resources views. We'll just create a new folder called pages, and under the pages we'll create a folder called users, and then users will create a new file called index.blade.php, and this will extend the layouts.main, which is a template I've set up already, and we've got a section in there that will be the content. I will just say end section, and in here let's just try and say this is the users page, just so we can see if it works. Okay, let's set up a route. Let's say get users, and we're going to call the user controller, and we're going to ask for the index method, and we're going to give it a name of users.index. So now if we go to /users, we should get our users page. It means that our route is working and our index method is working. Okay, so now we can go ahead and implement our users table. So within the theme, I already extracted a users table into a component called user management. Okay, so let's hook up the information in that component. So this is basically the table row that we've got that represents each user. Let's just make it look a little bit better so we can see what's happening. Okay, so that'll be the table row. Okay, and then we know that we're going to receive a users variable. So then we can say for each users as user, and then we can say end for each, and then we can paste our code right inside. And let's just line that up. Okay, and let's get our first information. Let's change this, the username, to user.name, and this would be the user.email. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what this looks like in the browser. So if we refresh our users table up, and then we get an error message, undefined variable users. Okay, that is because we haven't passed in the users to this component. So what we need to do is, in this component, we want to pass it a users, and we want to pass it the users like this. Now this users variable, we are receiving that from the user controller right there. So now if we go back to our browser and we refresh, we should get a list of all the users we've created. I think that's going to be it for this episode, guys. What I'll do is I'll go clean up this users table, make it look pretty, and complete all the information that we haven't put in. And in our next episode, we're going to come back and continue on with this user module and set up the create functions. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe now, so you don't miss out when I upload more content like this. Until the next episode, guys. See you later.